This was a major day for the United States on the world stage in Davos, because on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, President Trump hosted a signing ceremony for his Gaza Board of Peace, and more than 24 countries have accepted the president's invitation to join. But many of America's major European allies, they have either refused to commit or they've said no. And when asked if the board would replace the United Nations, President Trump said it might. So for more on the board, who's in, who's out, we go live to NewsNation's Kellie, Meyer in Washington. Kellie, good to see you. First, for anybody who doesn't know, what have we learned today about what this Board of Peace is supposed to do? Because there's mixed messaging about whether it's strictly for Gaza or it's going to have a role across the globe.
Yeah, and it's a good question because it did start out initially as focused on Gaza. You know, it was meant for the reconstruction of war-torn Gaza. It was meant to keep that ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. It initially started as something much smaller, and it's becoming something much bigger. And even the president saying that this could now go beyond Gaza and could solve conflicts around the world, he's saying. It also has grown significantly to bring other countries' leaders in. We know some of the people that have accepted the invitation are leaders from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Israel, but we know some countries that haven't, France, UK, Sweden. They say that this could potentially replace the United Nations. It could be a rival to the United Nations. And then there are some that, well, we learned tonight, are uninvited. The president posting on True Social that Canada has been uninvited to join because Carney and Trump have really been going back and forth at Davos. So still a lot of questions on who may still join. We also know Russian President Vladimir Putin. The president says he accepted, though the Kremlin says he's still reviewing that invitation.
And there's also been, the Canada news was very interesting, maybe not unsurprising. There has been a lot of talk about the president's role as chairman of this board and also how long he may stay on as chairman, because while we had word of this board forming and we knew it was part of the peace agreement, this seemed to be a new piece of information, right?
Yeah, and it's something that, of course, it shows the differences between the Board of Peace and the United Nations. The Board of Peace is something that the president has labeled himself as the chair of, and it is limitless, essentially. There's no term limit for him there. So even if he leaves or as he leaves the presidency, he could then go on to lead this forevermore. And he was asked about that on Air Force One on his way back from Davos. Let's listen to that.
I have the right to be if I want. I mean, I'll decide. We'll see what happens. But they'd like me to be. It's in theory for life.
So he says they would like me to do it. He says it's in theory for life. It's something that he's thinking about, and we'll see what he decides, Jesse.
What about Israel? Israel seems to have changed its stance about signing on, right?
Yeah, Israel's an interesting one because at first they were hesitant to join because there were other countries like Turkey and Qatar that were joining that they didn't agree with. They didn't agree with some of the policies in there. There was also many that were angry that Israel was joining because of the war in Gaza. But ultimately, Netanyahu decided just on Wednesday to become a part of it, seeing, though, that he could be more of a help to that board than rather staying out of it. So it was something that he thought he should be a part of.
It makes sense if this is initially being set up to maintain peace in the Middle East, in that region, how Israel wouldn't have a part in it. What about funding the board? I mean, where's the money coming from? We have this permanent membership who would be given to countries that it feels like that it would contribute more than a certain amount of money, right?
Yeah, it's becoming a membership kind of thing where if you contribute $1 billion, you're a member for life, you're a permanent member. If you don't contribute, you only have a 3-year membership. So everybody's welcome to join, but if you don't pay, you only have that 3-year. And they were talking about on the plane on the way back about Russian President Vladimir Putin, and if he pays, he wants to use some of the funds that have been blocked by the U.S. So there's that question, the frozen assets. And the president on the plane today saying if he uses his own money, that's great, he can join. So we'll see what happens with that.
Again, a very characteristic of the president, right, in the sense that, you know, pay your fair share. If you want to be a part of this, pay your fair share. Before I let you go, real quick, do we know anything about the president's meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky?
Yeah, he did talk about that. He did say that they had a good meeting. He talked a little bit about it on the plane. I believe we could play that soundbite of what he had to say, Zelensky had to say.
We're discussing things that have been discussed for 6 or 7 months, and he came and he said he wants to make a deal because I wasn't necessarily sure. I think he should want to make a deal. It's pretty tough. It's really tough on the people of Ukraine.
So that was really interesting there, Jesse, because he said Zelensky came to Davos to make a deal. We don't know if that was reached. We don't know if President Trump has spoken to Russian President Putin, but we do know Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff met with Russian President Putin today. They were there at the Board of Peace announcement, Witkoff and Kushner. Now they're in Moscow meeting with Putin, and they have meetings going into tomorrow with Ukraine, with Russia, with the U.S. over the weekend. So we'll see what happens.
Listen, communication, progress, that's positive right now. Kellie, Meyer in Washington, great seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.